I really, so welcome again. I see our recordings going. So I'm really excited to host this call tonight. I really enjoyed hosting Mary Esther Gilbert the last time. And I have to tell you that I'm particularly interested in tonight because NRM is one of the drops I'm most fascinated with. I think it's an often underestimated drop. I think that people who listen to this tonight will realize that almost every American needs it. And I'm really excited for the conversation that Mary Esther Gilbert and I are going to have tonight. So let me introduce our guest speaker. So I pulled some things for you, Mary Esther, but I did want to say a little bit about you myself as well. So Mary Esther has a bachelor's degree in nutrition science and a master's degree of science in holistic nutrition. She has over 40 years experience as a nutrition science physiology and alternative medicine researcher and writer. As a nutritional healing specialist, fitness and holistic lifestyle consultant, Mary Esther has developed evidence-based nutritional health improving protocols for her clients with many types of nutritional deficiency conditions, such as chronic illnesses and degenerative conditions, as well as for pre-surgery and post-surgery. But I have to tell you, in having met Mary Esther on this platform, I just so appreciate, Mary Esther, how you can take a look at different nutritional components, break them down, and kind of pull them all back in. I've learned so much in I guess almost a year and a half now, or a little over a year and a half that I've been here with APLGO. So I'm super excited for this conversation and welcome, and we're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. That's pretty much wraps it up, I'm happy to be here as always, and hi to everybody. Nice to be here with you, Susan.
Nice to be here with you. So, like I said, I'm super excited to talk about NRM, particularly where we are today. If everybody's noticed in this kind of heated environment, there's also been this kind of big view on health all of a sudden. Everybody's talking about health and how to get healthier and what you need to do. And again, I think this is where NRM really comes into play. So let me start with my first question for you. And I talked with Mary Esther Gilbert a little bit before through putting these out. I want to kind of build a story about why this drop is so powerful. So our bodies rely on energy produced by food we eat to fuel our bodies. In simple terms, would you please explain how the body uses the food we eat to produce energy?
I love that question. So many people don't really understand the whole, using your blood sugar for energy kind of concept. So, every time we do these calls, we take a slightly different approach because there's so many ways to describe what's happening in the body. So we can never run out of new things to describe about it. But this is pretty basic, So as you can see, I always like to provide the pictures. I'm going to enlarge it slightly so I can read it better. But anyway, we have to provide the fuel for the body at the microcell level. That's where our bodies produce energy. So when we digest our foods, we've got the salivary enzymes that digest the food. It's the preliminary digestive process. And then, when you swallow it, there's this peristaltic action that pushes the food all the way down to the stomach. And then you've got this food mass that isn't recognizable anymore. It's called the bolus. So that's when the stomach secretes its hydrochloric acid to further reduce that food bolus to smaller molecules during this digestive process. And when it's ready, when it's gone through the mixtures, the digestive enzymes and the hydrochloric acid breaking those food substances down even further, that's when it's ready to enter into the intestines. So we've got the stomach, the mouth, the stomach, and the small intestine that further reduces the foods like animal proteins down to smaller proteins called peptides. And then eventually they're broken down all the way down to the amino acids. So then that's when it enters the bloodstream. It's able to be released throughout the bloodstream, and the body directs it where it needs to be, where it needs to build new proteins, body proteins. So, and then we've got the starchy, complex carbohydrates, which is nothing more than small glucose units that are chain linked together or held by bonds. So that's what forms the complex carbohydrates versus the simple carbohydrate like sugar, and sucrose. And so once it reaches that level, then of course it's ready to enter the cell membranes. And the cell membranes are very distinctive. They only allow certain things in there. We've got cell receptor sites that are ready and waiting to find a match. And once it finds a match, then it allows that information to enter the cells. So then we've got the glucose. Of course, it reaches the bloodstream, right? And then that's when the pancreas starts releasing the hormone insulin so that it can take the blood sugar out of the bloodstream and let it enter the cells. So when you have excess glucose, then you can store it in your muscles. It can be stored in the liver, or if there's too much in the bloodstream, then it's immediately converted to fat and then stored in also the muscles and liver, but also stored in the fat cells. That's where the fat cell deposits under the skin and around the organs are. So that's like an energy reserve. You know, we're always battling the fat, right? We're always trying to burn off the excess, but actually it's a very important thing to have in the body if it's not affecting your health, so that you can dip into it, so that you can convert them to the glucose, because our brain and all of our cells are constantly working just on glucose. So we need to be able to utilize that. But if you can't get it in the cells, then it becomes a problem. So once the glucose reaches the bloodstream, the pancreas releases the hormone insulin to take up glucose into the cells for fuel. And then the excess glucose is stored in the muscles, like I said, liver converted to fat. I think I already said that. Oh, well, stored in fat cell deposits under the skin and around the organs. So when blood sugar levels fall, like when you're skipping meals or you're fasting, and at the extreme, starvation dieting, which never works, by the way, slows down the metabolism and creates all kinds of inflammatory responses. So you don't want to go there. So then the pancreas releases that hormone glucagon when you're low in blood sugar. So it's like a balancing effect between glucagon and insulin. So the glucagon stimulates the liver to convert glycogen, which is that complex carbohydrate, into glucose, which is that fundamental blood sugar. And this is called the process of glycogenolysis. So the liver can produce glucose that is moved into cells from energy through the insulin actions of the secretions from the pancreas. So I want everybody to take a good look at this process again, really quickly here. I'm going to just show you all the organs that are involved just for digestion, just to reduce those food molecules down to those minute nutrient components so that we can, generate energy inside of our multiple trillions of cells. So, you've got all the salivary glands secreting the ptyalin and other salivary enzymes, and you masticate the food, you reduce it to what's the pre-bolus size. And then we've got the esophagus that has that peristaltic action that pushes the food down for you. And then we've got the liver just getting involved. Then we've got the stomach, further breaking things down. And then we've got the pancreas secreting those, not just the insulin or the glucagon if you're low in blood sugar, but also the pancreatic enzymes that help digest the food as well. So, it just keeps going on, right? And it enters the very highly acidic, even more acidic than the stomach, by the way, in the small intestines. And so when the nutrients get further and further reduced, then they can enter the microvilli that we saw last time, or that I think I was talking about that in the course that I'm recording, actually. But I'm sure you've seen pictures of the microvilli before that we've talked about. But so it enters that, and that's how it gets into the bloodstream to get circulated, right? And of course, it enters the whole body and eventually ends up in the colon. So of course, you've got another gut-brain axis, that we've talked about before that happens down there. So yeah, this is pretty much how it happens, right? And I wanted to show you this other, larger, can't move this page, larger picture of the pancreas itself. So, in the other picture, it just shows the head and just an outline of the body and the tail. But this is a pretty big organ, and it's constantly secreting those enzymes and regulating the blood sugar. And so we'll talk a little bit about what can go wrong with that.
All right, awesome. And I do a lot of reading, and one of the things that always struck me, or I remembered, is Stephen Gundry said, always think of your food like a string of pearls. And you put those pearls in your mouth, and the goal is by the time they get down there into that small intestine, they all need to be broken apart, right? So that's why it's so important to chew, and the stomach acid and all those kind of things, correct? Because it needs to be broken down by the time it gets down there.
Yeah, and chewing your food thoroughly is the first step. You've got to start breaking that step down. Otherwise, it's going to be hard on the stomach. It's going to take longer. It's going to produce a lot of gaseous, upsets. But yeah, here's another picture of like the circle is supposed to represent the cell membrane. So you've got the glucose or the blood sugar arriving there at the cell membrane. You've got the inorganic ions and the free amino acids. All those have to be recognized and allowed inside our cells. Different kinds of protein, fats that are attached to protein so that we can absorb the fatty acids in there. Glutamine is just one of the components of the many aspects of what it takes to fuel our cells. Vitamins and minerals should be on there too. But once it gets in there, then the body goes to work to make new proteins and to repackage and repurpose everything and generate. I mean, it has to generate energy so that it can do all this work inside of our cells. So then, of course, we've got the cell replication process that has to be replicated correctly so we don't go into the disease process, and different kinds of sugars and whatnot. But yeah, and so in the meantime, we're digesting fats, through the gallbladder, and trying to utilize those fats in every single cell structure and other precursor hormones. It just goes on and on and on. But so only through reducing the food molecules to all the above. These are the basic nutrient substances. Through proper and complete digestion can these nutrients enter the cells so that we can produce that energy and repair and grow and regenerate. So all processes of digestion require the presence of vitamins and minerals and active enzymes. Once you cook foods and the enzymes are gone, your body has to produce the enzymes, an extra step to try to utilize these vitamins and minerals and digest the foods. And the phytonutrient compounds we're always talking about from these whole energy active, viable, unprocessed foods. So it's important to maintain a proper protein intake in order for the body to produce these enzymes, because enzymes are proteins. And so those are also needed for digestion. All the enzymes that we need for digestion are proteins. So it's important to keep the protein intake up too.
Wow. All right. Awesome. So that brings up my second question. And so here it is right here. It says, there's a new bestseller by Callie Means called Good Energy. And this is a deep dive into metabolism, cellular health, and longevity. It's really a good book, but she spends a lot of time talking about the importance of blood sugar and the dangers of poor metabolism. So we now know that how we use the body for fuel. Tell us a little bit about why it's so important that people put good nutrition in and not bad nutrition.
Oh, I love that question. Thank you for that, Susan. So, all right. If you don't nourish your body properly, these are the things that can go wrong. So, if you've got a chronic nutrient deficiency going on, then it's going to start having to dip into your own reserves in your tissue, your organs, your quality of your blood, and sacrifice a lot of your immunity and disrupt your hormone balance and fall short of how the nervous system communicates through every single corner of your body, all the way everywhere. So it's going to really stop a lot of these processes. And in fact, if there's a nutrient at any given time that's missing, your body needs it, and if it's not there, it's going to halt that operation and just go on to try to do something else. And so, of course, with the hierarchy, it's always going to preserve the brain and the kidneys and the heart, and the lungs and the liver and all those very important, life preserving aspects of the body. So that's one thing, And then protein deficiencies, like I just said, if there's one amino acid that's missing and the body can't manufacture it, then it forces the body to break down its own body protein tissues, like of the less vital tissues, systems like the muscles, the connective tissue, like cartilage, bone tissue. So all these things aren't, life-threatening unless they've wasted down to the point where, you can't even function in order to meet the energy needs of all these vital systems like the brain and heart, lungs, kidney, and liver, like I just said. So protein or amino acid deficiencies, that's what results in what is known as a negative nitrogen balance. And you're always going to not be able to satisfy your hunger no matter what you eat. If you're not getting enough protein and satisfying your body's amino acid requirements, you're always going to be hungry. And people always are amazed at that. I don't know why, but they're always shocked. Oh, wow, I have to eat a certain amount of animal-derived proteins in order to stop my cravings? Yes. Yes. And then chronic fatigue, as the body is forced to break down its own protein tissues down to glucose. So it releases the nitrogen out of that molecule so that it can use the rest of the molecule to produce the glucose. To fuel the brain and to fuel the cell energy. So that step there You can go into ketosis, where you're constantly trying to dip into your body's protein tissues to produce the glucose that you need for energy. So that's not a good thing either. You're going to be wasting away. So this breaks down to glucose for all these cellular, fuel processes called catabolism, which is a building process, or creating a further nutrient calorie energy deficit, which, is the catabolism is when your body's breaking things down. So anabolism is when your body is building things. So nutritional.
Really interesting. Just a quick question. So that's interesting. When I've never heard it explained this way, which really makes a lot of sense, but your body will rob from itself to keep the other things alive, even though it's hurting itself by doing that.
Yeah, self-cannibalization. It's really bad. It's not, it's going to make you feel tired, fatigued, and, you won't be able to have any energy mentally or physically. So it's not a good place to allow yourself to be.
Interesting. Wow.
So then you've got nutritional deficiencies that can occur from eating all these highly refined or processed foods. Instead of the whole complexes of nutrients in these whole foods, enzyme active, light energy frequency, negatively charged ions going on, nutrient rich foods from, being raised or grown in nutrient rich environments. So they occur if you've been stripped of their original nutrient complexes through heat, chemical, molecular denaturization, at the molecular level, or molecular distortions that can cause cell damage. So when you fry oils, it causes such molecular distortions that you form plastics that stick to the arteries, and your body can't produce the enzyme required to break that down. So then you've got heat altered fats, like I just said, but they're known to cause atherosclerosis, or hardened plaque accumulations in the arteries. Of course, that's going to obstruct circulation. It's going to destroy all your cells, and it's going to also destroy the blood vessels. So if your blood vessels are damaged and your body can't clear the blood clot fast enough, it could break away and cause an embolism, which can land anywhere to block circulation, causing a heart attack or a stroke, or worse, to destroy the cell structures and impair hormone production and create glandular malfunctions. So the glands require the right molecular structures of fatty acids and all the other nutrients to form the right hormones to regulate and start and stop, together with the nervous system communications, to do all of these multiple trillions of processes at any given moment in the body, right? It's mind-blowing, I think. So then you've got highly refined, nutrient-stripped, fiberless carbohydrates like the white flour, white rice, sucrose, or white sugar that increase illness-causing microorganisms in the gut or the colon, impairing communications to the brain and glands that produce those hormones that affect mood, learning, thinking, and cognition. And then you also, those types of refined carbs will damage the stomach lining, that microvilli, and that way it forms like a cement that covers the microvilli so that your nutrients can't enter the bloodstream, and then destroys that stomach lining, causes ulcers and all kinds of other side effects. And the cell's ability to secrete critical digestive acids, and the enzymes. So it grossly impairs digestion. And then it deprives the body of all this different types of fiber, and like I said, you cannot the food enzymes can break that stuff down to some extent, but they need a lot of help from the fibers that we eat that are contained in the whole foods, vitamins and minerals, all these antioxidant effects. And of course, those phytonutrients are just invaluable for helping to break down foods and clear that stuff away. Just clear it out, break it down and clear it out. And of course, the chemically pure water from the living plants, that we consume. It's all required for maintaining proper blood sugar levels and the functions of all of those other organs. So, if you're constantly giving your body the wrong types of carbohydrates and fats, then your pancreas is going to be overtaxed. If you don't have enough protein in your diet, you won't be able to produce the digestive enzymes, which, the pancreas is able to create, and all of your other organs. So, it can just very quickly result in weight gain, and if it's a lifelong habit, then it's obesity, and that's associated with all these health problems, the metabolic syndrome that's associated with cancer and heart disease and diabetes and arthritis and all these other inflammatory conditions in the various organ systems. And then you can It also creates a high acidic environment or the lowered pH in the body, and that leads to inflammation reactions. We've talked about that before via the production of all these stress biochemicals that in response to the inflammation, leading to various degenerative, inflammatory physical conditions. So anytime you have an inflammatory state in the body, you're wearing things down and you're in pain, that's when people have to sit up and take notice. What have I been putting in my body that's causing this? There's always something that causes it as far as the types of nutrition you're providing your body. So then it creates a high acidic environment, like I said. I already said that. Okay. Leads to chronic dehydration, toxicity, and a higher likelihood of various system malfunctions, like I just said. And it leads to lower brain capacity, moods, perceptions, cognition, energy levels, lack of motivation. It's that gut-brain axis, that communication, pathway, and makes you more prone to injury, slowed or prolonged healing. Your body needs nutrients to heal, and it accelerates aging.
So that's amazing. So quickly, what would be some of these foods that people might not think of? I mean, we all know that like Skittles candy bothers you or soda bothers you, but what are some of the other foods that people might not think of that are bad for their energy that they might be eating that are bad for their energy?
Yeah, do not heat your oils. People love to saute their foods. Stick to the animal fats. Our ancestors thrived on animal fats and animal protein, and of course, the hunter gatherers gathered all the plant kingdom. It was always in nutrient rich environments, which provided the all the nutrient compounds to break down those very large molecules. But it's the fats. I have found over the years that heat altered fats are the culprits for most of people's health problems. They clog things, they disrupt your hormone production, they destroy the nerve cells, they clog the intestines so that you can't absorb your nutrients down there. So it just causes a lot of inflammatory reactions. Okay. And so, yeah, you don't want any of those vital systems to be impaired because that is going to lower your brain capacity. There's no communication going to the brain and back. Everything's getting clogged up and turning into hardened plaques.
Before we move on to the next question, Ruth asked a great question. Tallow, is tallow okay?
Oh yeah, that's an animal derived fat. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, tallow is usually made in the form for topical applications. So you're talking, we're talking about meat drippings. If you're cooking a ham bone or a beef or any kind of meat that has the fats, you want to cook foods in lower temperatures. So you don't want to boil them to death because that's when it alters the chemistry of the protein in the foods. But fats, they can handle quite a bit of heat, but it doesn't mean you should, fry things at very high temperatures with animal fats. The oils will turn into plastic, which clog everything, but the animal fats should be treated with, the respect that they deserve and in the proportions. So I always provided a pie, picture of a pie, right? And you draw a line to the middle of the pie, and the half of the pie is like 50% at least of raw foods, fruits, berries, vegetables, leafy greens, et cetera, and the others should be divided depending on your age and your level of activity or whatever health ailments you might be if you're in a state of inflammation. So you have to divide the upper half into the proteins, which is a significant portion of that pie, and a smaller sliver of it divided in half with 50% whole plant fats and 50% animal derived fats. Butter is excellent. If you have an organic product, then you're not going to have the pesticides that concentrate in the animal fatty tissues. So you're going to have a nice, clean type of fat that helps you build your cell structures, and that involves cholesterol. Our body makes cholesterol. We need it for the cell structures of every single one of our cells. So that's important too. And of course, the margarine industry did us a very big disservice by selfishly telling us that margarine was superior when in fact it's the opposite. It does more damage than any other thing because it's a plasticized plant oil.
And I love how you said whole plant, not seed oils, right? So seed oils are the sunflower oils, the safflower oils. Those are just garbage. They just need to take them out of their kitchen.
Yeah, you want to have foods that are higher in the omega-3s versus the omega-6s or the 9s. And a lot of the raw nuts and seeds, they have both, but in the best balance possible. But you do want to focus on foods that are higher in omega-3s. And even animals that have been raised in, nutrient-rich, free-range environments, truly free range. There's free range and then there's free range. But if these animals have been eating a healthy diet or healthy feeds, then their tissues are going to contain the omega-3s too. So, and that includes eggs. Organically raised chickens that produce the eggs are going to be very high in omega-3. So that kind of fatty acid is extremely important.
Nice. Okay, so this brings one of my favorite questions. So we'll go on to the next question. So, all right, so we've now learned about, the cells needs energy, they need good energy, but a lot of people don't understand the high prevalence of insulin resistance and what that is from the difference between pre-diabetes and diabetes. So can you kind of quickly just explain each one of those and how they progress?
Yeah, let's break that down. Okay, so insulin resistance, that occurs only in type 2 diabetes. So it happens when the insulin receptors at the cell membrane don't respond to the hormone insulin, which is supposed to normally stimulate the process of glucose entry into the cell. So that's the job of insulin, is to take that extra blood sugar out of there and put it into the cells to be utilized for energy. So glucose or blood sugar levels rise in spite of the pancreas increasing its production and secretion of insulin into that bloodstream to try to take that glucose out of the cells. So the less that is able to do that, the more the pancreas is stimulated to produce more and secrete more and more of that insulin, but it's not doing any good. It's not being able to being taken up into the cells. So this is important. Glucose absorption into the cells is resisted due to the specific proteins that identify insulin at the cell membranes that remain locked. So there's like a mechanism that just doesn't recognize it. And here, the cell membrane in its typical fashion does not allow something that it detects that should not be there, but yet that mechanism can be erroneous, right? Nutrient deficiencies, that's what happens. There's not enough information to build the right information on those cell membranes to allow that the blood sugar to be absorbed. So this is like a detection site. So, we need proteins and all the other nutrients to make sure that those detection sites at the cell membranes receive the right information and can interpret the right information. So one of the proteins that actually can block that is the GLUT4. And so it's an insulin regulated glucose transporter. So it transports the nutrients through the cell membrane into the environment of the cell. So that's for insulin regulated glucose uptake into the fat and muscle cells. And so that is called down regulation, or it's blocked from taking up glucose into the cells. Then you've got complete cellular nourishment and regular exercise. That's a key factor to help unlock this mechanism. So exercise actually improves how your body can determine what it can allow inside of your cells. Increased circulation, increased nutrient activity, increased oxygenated tissues, hydration. That's extremely important. Water is an important factor in all of this. So it's a dominant factor, so that you can utilize glucose. And you need it for muscular power and energy production in the cells while you're exercising, right? You've got to keep that energy flow going. So it practically forces the body to utilize that glucose, so it's circulating in there and you've got to just dip into it. Of course, it's also dipping into the glycogen or muscle starch, which can be reduced to glucose in the muscles as well for muscular energy. And that's why we need to replenish nutritionally after we exercise, because we are utilizing our reserves when we're exercising as well. So here's some diagrams of what you can kind of take a look at. Like, so this is the bloodstream up above here. You've got insulin being secreted, to take up all that glucose so that it can enter the cells. And here's the receptor sites, and here's the GLUT4 receptor site. And then the transporters too. These are extra proteins that allow this process to be pulled into the cell. So when you have diminished glucose uptake, then it's going to be a problem. You're going to be very low on blood sugar, or you're going to go into insulin shock depending on the situation. So this can be either fat or muscle cells also that it happens with. And then in this one, it says kind of the same thing. So the pancreas is signaled to release the insulin into the bloodstream after we digest our food. And then this is like a normal insulin response. Okay, so here's the blood sugar, the sugar we consume that turns into glucose very quickly, by the way. And it enters through the mechanism that allows this to happen. And then insulin attaches to the receptor on the cell. So then we've got the GLUT4 protein activated to make that channel allowed to accept that glucose inside of the cell. It's as simple as that, or so it seems. So then we've got pre-diabetes. So, if you don't watch out, your pancreas is going to get very tired, or it's not going to have the nutrient factors that require it to produce the insulin, or to, like I said, the cell membrane structures, that GLUT4 and other proteins that are the detection mechanisms. So it's measured by a fasting blood sugar level. So if you feel like you're pre-diabetic, or if you're going in to have an exam, then they measure your blood sugar level, your fasting blood sugar level. So normally a measurement of 99 milligrams per deciliter or lower is normal. So that's where insulin is able to normally uptake excess blood sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells and tissues. And then a post-fasting blood sugar level of 100 to 125 milligrams per deciliter indicates a certain amount of insulin resistance or the inability to remove excess blood sugar. So it's going to take a while to get that out. And people don't feel too well when that happens. They know something is wrong. They start feeling really either dizzy or they're tired. They just aren't getting enough of that glucose to fuel their cells. And then if you have a fasting blood sugar level of 126 milligrams per deciliter or higher, it indicates a diabetes condition. So then we've got diabetes type 1. That's when you're born without the ability to produce insulin. So, that hormone that helps uptake the blood sugar or glucose out of the bloodstream and into the body cells, that's the basic fuel for powering all of your metabolic processes. So too much glucose in the bloodstream or hyperglycemia can lead to circulatory problems that affect the heart, the kidneys, nervous system, teeth, and gums, the microcirculatory system, and that includes the eyesight. So in this type of diabetes, an individual should take insulin their whole lives. They have to. So then we've got, I just want to say one more thing about type 2 diabetes. So it's known as adult onset diabetes because it's caused by, just wearing out the pancreas, nutrient factors that are missing that just don't allow the pancreas to function. A person can have type 2 diabetes and not even know it. Over time, that insulin production increases as the body attempts to remove the high blood glucose levels out of the bloodstream and deliver that into the cells. But then again, eventually, it won't be able to access the cells.
Wow.
Okay.
And then just quickly, so before we just get into NRM, when you go through these phases, you have insulin resistance, you probably don't know it. They don't really test for it, right? They really only test for when you get to that pre-diabetic stage, correct?
That's right. Yeah. If you're, eating a healthy diet and you happen to have a lot of dessert at a party or something, you go over, you can feel the difference. You can feel that sick feeling, and your body's just like taking it out of that bloodstream as fast as it can, just storing it as body fat, in the liver and under the skin and that kind of thing. So you're going to feel the difference. But over time, the body's so adaptive, you either mentally get used to that feeling or the body starts trying to find a way to do that. And it's all just going to store it as body fat as much as you can. So it's really the sugars that cause more body fat storage than the fats themselves. However, they're high in calories. So of course, anytime you consume too many calories at once, your body has no choice but to break it down and store it as body fat. And that's the energy reserves in the body. But yeah, eventually, like I said, the pancreas is just unable to keep up with that insulin production because the body's not nourished enough to be able to produce all of the mechanisms that are necessary there.
Wow, just crazy. So that brings us to this amazing product that we have. So we have NRM, and there's some questions in the chat that we'll get to afterwards. So just keep posting there, and we'll get to them. But let's talk, because I think some of these answers will come by you talking about, okay, so now we have this great product called NRM. Tell us, what it is and how this helps with healthy blood sugar.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Okay, so basically pulling this information out of that trusty book of mine.
Right here,
Um,
Potent Superfoods. Woohoo!
oh,
We
you've
love
got
this
that
book.
one. Oh,
No,
okay.
I haven't
Yeah.
bought the new one yet, but we got the new one too. But I love these
Yeah.
books. They're amazing.
Yeah. The second edition has the newer formulations in it that I added to the original one. But yeah,
Here it is. Yeah, love it.
so these are the systems that are facilitated when we ingest these drops that contain all of these wonderful phytonutrient compounds. They're massive molecules as micronutrients go, and they're so complex, the body loves it. Our DNA can read it, like a good book and break those things down and utilize it, sometimes completely intact, because that's how compatible these plant chemicals are to our own bodies. So anyhow, the systems that are facilitated are that glucose carbohydrate metabolism, aiding in insulin functions and assisting in insulin production. Okay. And they don't allow the body to store fat as readily. Rather, it distributes it, either rapidly turning it into energy or building the cell structures in a little bit more of a priority, so it can utilize the fats and that kind of thing. I mean, there's so many ways to use nutrients that contain foods that contain fats. So then we've got the antioxidants, neutralizing those free radicals, donating those electrons, and so that those damaging particles that don't belong in the body can't do their damage. They're just neutralized, and the immune system comes in and is much more easily able to disassemble them and help your body eliminate them through all these different channels. And then also produce more energy in the cell. So they're anti-fatigue. So these are the phytonutrient compounds that are found in the botanicals in the norm.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, so there was already some things already in the chat box about people asking these questions. So we have this great product. It supports healthy blood sugar, but who can use NRM? So let's kind of break down. Like we've talked about the different people. We've talked about the insulin resistance. We've talked about pre-diabetes, diabetes, but what about just the average person too? So can you kind of go through what that is?
Oh yeah, we can always use help in how our body uses sugar and fats. you know, so anyone can. People as young as 3 years old, and sometimes infants have been given the dissolved drops in water a little bit. Nutrients are nutrients, and especially for a growing, developing, rapidly growing person, little person. So like you said, you've seen that over 85% of Americans and Canadians have some kind of insulin resistance, but don't know it. So norm, as you can see in chart 4 here, kind of answers that question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, your body is always working to do all of these things over here on the left. And so we're consuming all of these very complex molecular structures that are known by science. And this isn't new science. These are I just gathered thousands of peer-reviewed studies and took a look at the summarizations from the peer review panels of experts, that gather this information and produce the reports showing that these nutrient compounds, I saw these nutrient compounds over and over and over again for, different botanicals over the years. So I'm pretty familiar with what they can do. They have been proven indeed. And science is very, very specific. When you do a scientific research study, they're only going to study a certain mechanism, how the body breaks down glucose out of certain cell with a certain cell receptor site, at the cell membrane. So they get very, very specific, and their scientific methods are extremely technical and intricate and accurate, So they have to follow guidelines set by the scientific community throughout the world. This isn't something that's specific to one country. All scientists who are studying things, using the scientific method is have to adhere to these strict standards in order to produce something that's reliable, right? So, one group of scientists may or may not arrive at the same conclusion, or they can contribute to an extra aspect of something that's happening at the cell membrane with a specific micronutrient, phytonutrient in a botanical. So, it can get very, very specific. So you can get lost forever in this labyrinth of scientific research. But a lot of times you have certain entities that are funding, the outcome that they want for whatever reason. to scientists. So that's where they get weeded out, the credible ones versus the non-credibles, and the legitimate ones versus the non-legitimate ones. So it all gets broken down so that you have a better picture of the intricacies and the accuracies of real science. Okay, so that's why I like the peer-reviewed studies. They're so much more reliable. But yeah,
So let's move now. So that's insulin resistance. Again, this is when the cells they struggle to uptake. But now a lot of people come to us, or those of us are health coaches, or people are asking about the drops. I have pre-diabetes or I have diabetes, So we know that Norm will support obviously all those things in table 4. But what about, is there anything, if they're on an insulin, is there a problem with it? Or, kind of walk us through that. We get that question a lot.
oh yeah, if you're already on insulin and you're taking the drops, then your insulin is not going to it's not the only way your body is going to receive insulin. Okay, and this is what happens. This is what I found in my own practice, that when I taught people what to eat and what not to eat and put them on a good nutritional supplement, it would have been even better if I had the drops, back then. But then their doctors said, oh, well, now you're pre-diabetic, and eventually, okay, now you're to the point where your pancreas is functioning normally. So I don't know what you call it, if it goes into remission or if you're healed or whatever you want to call it. The cells started functioning normally after that. So minerals play a very important role in this as well, in these plant, properly grown and raised animals that contain these types of nutrients. So vitamins, minerals, all the above. So yeah, this is what happens. People get weaned off their insulin. I've seen that happen. Of course, a lot of other entities don't want you to know that, but that's what I have found, and it happens to match the scientific research that I verified that with.
So any suggestions for use for people that are doing this? Again, we're talking about plant compounds, so they're very healthy for the body. But again, I think there was even a question in the chat about, I have diabetes. How do I use this drop? Do they use them before? Do they use them after? How many? I mean, is this anything that you can help us with?
Yeah. The drops aren't going to be an insulin fix. So don't take the norm thinking, well, I just had a big piece of cake or a lot of sugar today, a high sugar cereal or whatever, and not, if you're not having enough protein, then your body can't regulate that sugar properly either, or enough of the healthy fats, then your body can't regulate that sugar properly either. So these nutrient compounds have been found by scientists over time, many studies over time. These particular phytonutrients have been found to help the body use insulin, and actually the gymnanic acid assists in insulin production. It doesn't say makes your body make insulin, it says assists. So there's a very complex process that goes on in how your body makes insulin. So during that process of formulating the protein known as insulin, which is a hormone, which is a protein, then these types of nutrients will aid in the right production so that your body can utilize it better. Or, it happens at the atomic level too, that you've got this hooking on of different molecules that merge together, and that happen to help the body utilize glucose more efficiently. So it aids the insulin functions.
So is this something that if somebody was taking, say insulin and they were doing the drops, they should be very mindful of their numbers, because their numbers could improve, because obviously the drops are supporting the body's ability to kind of process the sugar?
Yeah. The thing that is the rule of thumb here is to balance your diet. That's the best thing you can do. Then monitor your blood sugar levels. Taking a drop should not, with that 1 gram of sugar in it, should not affect you unless you've had too many other sweets that day, and you're relying on your insulin injections like that. That's not a very nice way to treat your body. You're making it work harder, and that's a very thin line in this insulin that you're injecting into the body. So you've got to train your body by that DNA, the instructions at the cell level, how to function normally. And so these nutrient compounds are the missing factors that allow that process to occur properly.
Yeah, so I guess, that, and so the flip side of that is that, once they're doing this and it's aiding them, would they be able to come, how do they know, how do they know if they could potentially come off of, or they've got too much insulin because now the drops have helped them and they're taking their insulin and they're actually getting too much? Is that a possibility?
Um, that's a question for a medical doctor, but I suspect that that's not how you need to look at it. It all comes back
Okay,
to that diet. Get the
excellent.
white flour, white sugar, all of these other chemical beverages, get that junk out of your body so it can focus on regulating itself and correcting itself. Just provide all the nutrients, the full gamut of vitamins and minerals, high water content foods, enzyme active foods, balance the proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, and just monitor yourself that way so that you don't have all these other factors that interfere with that.
All right, great. Well, I have one more question, then we've got some questions in the chat. So, all right, so we're going into the sweetest time of the year, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. There is so much candy, so much stuff. So, how can we use NRM and like pass them out like candy, even though we know they're not, at some of these times?
Oh, you mean giving out the APLGO drops in the children that knock at the door, say trick or treat?
Putting
Is
them
that
around
what
the
you mean?
Thanksgiving table after pie. I mean, how would this help?
Oh,
How would this help everybody manage the holidays?
oh, okay. Well, you might want to give everybody one of those before they eat, and that'll
Okay.
help satisfy the appetite because nutrients are what satisfy the appetite. Okay, you can feel full, but yet still be craving something, right? Especially soon after. So again, try to prepare meals that are high in the protein, high in the whole food fats, and the whole food carbohydrates. And then if you provide a dessert, try to make it a lower sugar, kind of dessert, or more fruit, or something like that, because otherwise people will come there with the idea of overeating. It happens. You can't avoid it on these holidays. But if you provide the healthier foods, then people won't be in danger of, violating their ability to process blood sugar kind of thing. So the way to steady your blood sugar levels is protein, whole food carbohydrates, and whole food fats, because the whole food carbohydrates are complex carbohydrates, and it takes a long time for them to break down to glucose. So it's like a sustained release energy kind of thing into the bloodstream. So you don't have a large amount of concentrated sugars in the bloodstream when you eat whole food carbohydrates, like the yams and the potatoes, beans and whole grain rices, not the refined rices, or any other whole grain that you might want to serve. Does that answer
So
your question?
yeah, yeah. And then again, I guess my other part of that is that like you mentioned something kind of interesting to me. You said, you could take an NRM before dinner to kind of help stabilize things. So could you also do the same thing after? So it's kind of explain that, like if you were going to use an NRM just to kind of support the body's ability to process this stuff, taking one before sounded like it was good. Could you also take one after to support?
Well, just watch the sugars that you eat, and you might want to wait a little while, before you have a drop.
Okay.
Because I had one incidence where a person was at dinner with his family, and he had a couple of desserts and a giant cookie, and then he took 10 drops. So
Oh,
then, you know, his blood sugar was already spiked, and he blamed it on the drops. And I said, well, if you had only just had those 10 drops instead of all those sweets, you'd be okay. And he was diabetic. So, that caused that incident, but it wasn't the drops. Those phytonutrients help regulate blood sugar, help the pancreas function better to get the insulin, and help those cell receptor sites to receive that information to allow the blood sugar to enter the cells. So all these things are going on. So just watch your sugar intake. Just watch that sugar intake before the season and after, kind of thing, so that you can enjoy the drops if that's what you want for a dessert. That would be excellent. An excellent dessert.
I picture this guy looking like a chipmunk with all these drops in his face, I can't imagine doing it. So
I've done uh, I've done 5 drops at a time. Boy, that was fun.
so some of the questions that we had some great questions in the chat. So John said, I have a great question for myself. I eat really healthy and avoid chemicals, but I often eat breakfast, but lunchtime I get so hungry I start to shake and feel weak. What do we think this is about?
Okay. So first of all, if you don't have enough protein at breakfast, you're going to be low on blood sugar. because of how your body is it just helps stabilize your blood sugar and it lasts longer, you know. And if you have a whole food carbohydrate with that breakfast and a fresh fruit or even a vegetable or leafy green, heck, for breakfast every morning, I have this gigantic multi-vegetable, multi-greens salad to stabilize the blood sugar, help with digestion, right? And then, of course, there's always the meat, which varies, and also the carbohydrate, which could be anything, potatoes or beans or whole grain bread or later whole grain cereal, you know, whatever. If you balance your breakfast that way, then you can last for 4 to 6 hours if you do that properly. But if you only want to eat a small breakfast, then take a snack with you to hold you over until you have your meal, so that you aren't, you know, at that state of self consuming biochemistry, you know.
It's interesting. And most people don't think about eating a salad for breakfast, right? They think of it more of as a lunch food, and it can be so good, right? And
Oh
nothing better
yeah.
to start your day with. So someone else, Sherry asked, what is the best form of protein? Now you've answered some of this, but we could probably go over. And how much per day should we have? And when is the best time to have protein? So again, you've answered some of it, but kind of like wrap that up. That's a really good question.
Great question, Sherry. Okay, so this is a rule of thumb that I learned in my bodybuilding years, and it's carried over for me, you know, in all the physical activity I've done over the years, you know, weight training and ballet and yoga and running, you know, all those different sports and martial arts. So having enough protein is so important because your body needs it. First of all, that's high priority. But if you're going to be exercising as well, you're going to need a little bit more, you know, because you're tearing down a lot of your body resources. But the thing is, you want to have a quality protein. Organic is ideal, if not free range, you know, not fed antibiotics and the hormone drugs kind of thing. Uh, so it can be chicken or beef or lamb, any kind of animal derived protein. But also another rule of thumb is that your ideal body weight, like let's say you're 5'3" like me, and my ideal body weight is supposed to be 120. Okay. And so um, my grams of protein, even though it's 120 pounds, it's like oranges and apples, it seems, but 120 pounds, my ideal intake of protein, considering my activity, is 60 grams of protein. And so that's a healthy portion of meat. If you have a big 4 ounce piece of meat, that's going to be 30 grams of protein. My breakfast consists of at least 3 ounces of meat and also 2 jumbo organic eggs because I'm busy. I'm active, right? I'm constantly working my muscles, you know. And so I want to have enough energy for all the other activities, you know, the thinking and the planning and all the other work that I do. So your weight in pounds and the half of that weight in grams. Okay, so 120 pounds would be 60 grams of protein. So you could extrapolate, you know, on that.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And so important. And, a lot of people say, you talked about organic or free range, there's that great quote that says, if you won't take time for your wellness, you're going to be forced to take time for your sickness. And really eating good food and taking the time to buy healthy meats. You don't need a ton of it, right? I mean, again, you just mentioned about how many grams of protein are in a smaller amount, but it's so important that it be clean and healthy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want all those chemicals and all those pesticides that those poor animals have eaten, genetically modified feeds that can alter your own DNA. You want that stuff out of your body. Your body needs protein, good, clean protein.
Love that.
And
And then
also,
oh, go ahead. Sure.
okay, I just wanted to say the cost, people always say, well, I can't afford organic. Actually, you don't have to eat as much because that's so nutrient dense that your body will be so satisfied and you'll feel more energetic and healthier anyway. So, just people spend a lot of money in other areas of their life. I'm sure there's some way they can kind of cut those things down, maybe going to Starbucks twice a week instead of 5 days a week, kind of thing. Because
Seven
that
bucks.
food is, yeah, oh gosh, yeah, you don't even want to go there.
No.
That's not even food. you know so don't think of it in terms of cost in monetary terms. Think of it in cost of what it'll cost you in your health and your misery and hospital bills and that kind of thing that really doesn't work. Your body needs nutrients.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, any of us that work with coaching and try to get people to eat healthier, the first thing they'll say to you once they're on, they'll say, I'm so shocked. I thought I'd be wanting snacks and I'd be hungry all the time, and I'm not hungry, right? It's exactly it. And then John makes a good point. Pasture raised over free range, or pasture raised organic is obviously, an excellent way to do it. Talk to your local farmers. It's obviously the best way to go. You can often visit the farm, so that's a good way to do it. So the last question that we had up here, and then we might have time for one more. We're just about out of our hour, but someone said, if a person has pancreatic cancer history from mother, is adult 2 pre-diabetes starting an indicator? And if so, what can we do to slow down that process? And again, I think you answered this beautifully by saying, listen, watch what you're eating. Clean foods, whole foods. Don't fry them in a lot of fat, right? Make sure you're taking that time to eat good, nutrient-dense foods, correct?
Yes, I'm going to say this very carefully. When I had my practice and I was diving into that scientific literature to produce nutritional healing protocols for people, no matter what their ailments were, I looked it up. I looked up what the scientific world had found. And so I came up with lists of foods that scientists, peer-reviewed studies, found that certain phytonutrient compounds in these foods were shown to destroy cancer cells, both in vitro, in the laboratory petri dishes kind of atmosphere, and also in live subjects in vivo. So when I applied that to my clients, I can't say here, but you can guess the outcome if the science matched the outcomes.
Yeah, love that. And so, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Is there, oh, do you have another chart for us there?
I just wanted to show you this chart. Yeah,
Love it.
I'm happy to answer any questions though, because anyone can download this later on. But I just broke everything down according to which of the ingredients in NORM contain the compounds and what they do for the body. You know, and I broke it down also into carbohydrate metabolism, aiding insulin functions. So you've got those sets of phytonutrients in these different botanicals, and then also assist in insulin production in the gymnemic acid is in the gumar leaf, and then the anti-hyperlipidemic fat cholesterol metabolism type of work are found in the tannins and the pectin and erythrosides, and those are in these botanicals here. And I also reiterated, in more detail what these do in the body. So then you've got the organic and inorganic acids that are found in these types of foods as well, especially the apple. It's got many, many different benefits there. And then the antioxidants, anti-inflammatory nutrient compounds that are found in the Siberian ginseng root and the balsam pear. So yeah, it's got a pretty good breakdown. I got this all from the book, so the book breaks it down even better. So I think everyone should have that book because
Absolutely. Everyone needs to have this book. The book is
I wrote it.
amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. And I got to tell you,
It
everybody needs to get this chart. We get asked so many questions about diabetes, about insulin resistance, and again, I think that NRM is a drop that's often overlooked for some of the other drops. And look at what this is doing. Look at all the compounds. Look at all the great things it's doing for someone's body. It's just amazing, right?
Yeah,
So, again,
absolutely.
pull it out of the closet. Don't let it sit back there because you're taking some of these other drops like Grow, or which are all amazing too. But NRM, I mean, if you look at what's in there and you listen to what Mary Esther has said, it's absolutely amazing. So, Mary Esther, how can people find you? Before we could take another question, but I want to make sure everybody knows how to get you before we start jumping off. Tell them how they can get you, how they can get your book, and how they can catch some of the other great Zooms that you've done.
Yeah, let's take a look. Go to my website, holisticchoices.com, and then click on APLGO. I always post all the PDFs that I do. They're all there. They're all listed here. And also a link to the APLGO book. You won't find that book in any bookstore or not even on Amazon. It's only through the publisher that I hired to produce the book for us. So, you can order it through there. Let's see. I should have linked this to, the link is actually, okay, let me go back. Sorry.
That's okay. It's really important. And for
The,
those of you
yeah,
who are newer, while Mary Esther finds out, having a book like this when you are trying to research, if you are, there's all kinds of people, but if you're that kind of geeky science person, I have to get the new one. I just haven't had a chance, but I've got like tags, I've got highlights. I mean, it's amazing for those of you who really want to research these things. It's a great tool to have. It's an amazing, amazing book. Oh, there it is.
630. Yeah.
You dropped it in the chat box.
Yes, I did. It's 631 pages, and it has any term you don't know. I compiled an encyclopedia dictionary kind of hybrid section, huge section, and hundreds and probably a couple thousand of scientific research citations that occur throughout the book. So you've got this huge section of references in the back of the book. It's got a nutrition section in it. So it's like a all-in-one kind of thing. And if you have anyone who has a question or has doubts that they might work, this is the book that you can go to. It's going to give you the answers. Also, a question for all of you. Would you like to have an ebook version of the book?
Oh yeah, that would be great. For those of us that move around, we could have it on our tablet to look stuff up. Yes.
Okay, I see. I
Yes,
see a
yes,
yes.
yes,
A lot
yes,
of yeses.
yes. All kinds of yeses out there, right?
I know. And the hardcover, there's
Oh,
nothing like a hardcover book in your hand, right?
what do you
But
think
yeah,
about it? But if I go on a cruise somewhere or I'm on a vacation, although I'd love to take Mary Esther with me, it probably won't make it in my backpack with all my APLGO drops and everything else I take. So again, to have that type of version would be absolutely amazing. So we can probably have time for one more question. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask Mary Esther Gilbert about the drops, about NRM?
yeah, all the videos are on that page too, by
Yeah,
the way. I'm showing you right now.
it's incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
All
I
right.
don't think they do. I think that's it. So again, I can't thank you enough. What an amazing, thing to listen to. And folks, like I said before, there's so much going on today where they're really focusing on health. Those of you that are working with others or have people asking questions, people want to know how they can support healthy blood sugar, how they can make themselves healthier. APLGO drops or that, and especially drops like NRM can be super helpful if you are trying to make the most out of your diet. So last thoughts from you, Mary Esther.
Oh, wow. I think norm should, no matter how healthy you are, it should be part of your APL drop, array of things that you want to take, because it's always going to help you balance your blood sugar level and utilize and make sure your pancreas is working and functioning properly. Definitely.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much for tonight. We truly appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for being on. And we will see you all next month for our next call.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you,
everybody.
everybody. It's been a
Good night.
pleasure and an honor.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You're very welcome.
Bye.
Thank you, Meg.
Bye, Mary Esther.
Bye-bye.